For some super duper touring car action. This is going to be cool. All the cars have lined up on the grid. This is a top 6 partially reversed grid. We've got Will Butler on pole. He's never led a race in his whole entire career. Also, he's never started from pole. So watch out for him in his car. The other person to look out for is Bruce Winfield from yesterday, starting on the front row of the grid in the DSG Cupra. That car is unreal off the front of the grid. I watched yesterday in their first race, and I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of scores to be settled. We've got the Kent brothers out there, we've got Max Hart. He ended up in the gravel up at Druids. There's a lot to talk about. There's going to be lots of great racing, and also don't forget about the VW Racing Cup as well. Those guys, we've got Martin Depper, the dad of Jack, who's up the front as well. So is he going to give him that Father's Day present that he's wished for? It's going to be very interesting to watch those guys at the rear of the field as well. A lot of noise down here in the pit lane, but this race is not far from getting underway. All the cars coming off their jacks now, going onto the green flag lap. So I think we should throw over to Andy McEwen, who's our lead commentator. I'm going to run like hell and get up to the top and join him. See you in a minute.
Here we go then, the second race of the weekend for the Maximum Network's Volkswagen Racing Cup, incorporating the Goodyear Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK. Those of you trackside who were here yesterday and at home watching on the live stream were treated to an absolute classic yesterday. It was fast, it was frenetic, it was fairly chaotic at points, with lots of cars ending up sideways in the gravel. Couple of slightly unhappy drivers at the end of it all, but one or two very happy ones indeed, especially the three that ended up on the podium. Dan Kirby got his first ever victory and became the 5th different winner in the first 5 races this year, whilst Toby Byrne and Jack Constable joined him in the top 3 for the first time in their touring car racing careers as well. So it was a really, really entertaining race yesterday. The drivers have had an extra drivers briefing this morning, I believe, just to reinstate the fact that the racing needs to be close, but it needs to be maybe a tad cleaner than it was yesterday. So hopefully we are in for quite the spectacle here this morning. This is the second of 3 races, of course, this weekend, and so the third race later on, the grid will be set by the second fastest lap times from qualifying yesterday. This one, though, features a partially reversed grid, so the top 6 finishers from yesterday's race are reversed, meaning that yesterday's winner, Dan Kirby, starts 6th, and it is, as Paul O'Neill was just telling us, Will Butler, who has the pole position there in the Power Maxed Racing Cupra. Alongside him, Bruce Winfield, who was one of the revelations yesterday. Bruce unfortunately missed out on the podium after some contact with Toby Byrne up at Clearways, but Bruce Winfield in a DSG gearboxed Cupra, which in theory should be quite a bit slower than the sequentially gearboxed cars around him, got two demon starts yesterday, one on the initial start, one on the restart after the red flag, and could be a potential race winner here today. So the green flag lap then gets underway. The cars accelerate towards Paddock Hill. Then let's run you through that grid then ahead of our second race of the weekend. It's Will Butler and Bruce Winfield, as I've said, making up the front row. Then Lewis Kent, the championship leader, still managed to extend, being in the wars a little bit, managed to finish in, where was he, 4th place in yesterday's race with the fastest lap too. He's 3rd with Jack Constable alongside him. Then the top 2 from race 1, Toby Byrne and Dan Kirby, they were pretty much nose to tail at the end of that race, and they start together on row 3 now, Byrne ahead of Kirby. Will Powell is a non-starter sadly, so Alex Kite on his own on the 4th row. Dan Wiley in the rear-wheel drive BMW is on row 5 alongside Darren Lewis. Then it's Bradley Kent, non-finisher yesterday, just as he was starting to build a real championship challenge. Chris Wallace and Max Hart, who was 2nd in the championship but lost that P2 to Bruce Winfield yesterday. Those 3 start at the back of the Touring Car Trophy grid. Then we move into the VWs, where it's a top 4 grid reversal. So Ollie Turner, who had all sorts of trouble during the race, he's got pole position alongside Jeff Alden. Then Martin Depper and Jack Depper, father ahead of son this time, although it was son Jack that won the race yesterday, with Russell Joyce, hopefully with his turbo issues sorted, joining them at the back of the grid. Paul O'Neill joins me in the commentary box now. Paul, I am quite excited about this one. We've got a grid that I think is as competitive as it's been all year, a track that always produces great racing, and there are still, I think, 1 or 2 little damp patches out there on circuit just to throw an extra bit of spice in the mix.
That power put into the front wheel drive cars. So yeah, they're just trying to get it all sorted out. They're trying to get on the grid. There might be a delta issue with the front to rear grip of these cars, because the fronts are getting a battering to get the heat in them. Then the rears, they really struggle to get the temp in them. So I'm really looking forward to this one. That is the best shot I've ever seen in motorsport, which is from our drone. The guys are pretty slow, aren't they, at the back getting into position? So the front row is going to be even more nervous. William Butler, how nervous do you want to be, lad? He's going to be awesome.
Yeah, Will has a background in rallying, so the closest he's got to this before is a bit of tarmac rallying he's done. Let's hope that he keeps it on the tarmac for the next 20 minutes then, as our second race of the weekend is about to get underway. Red lights go on, they go out after quite a long hold now, and Will Butler doesn't get a great start. Bruce Winfield is away well from the outside of row 1. So is Dan Kirby, looking the blue Cupra ahead of Toby Byrne already. Towards Paddock they go, they're 4 wide. Kirby to the inside, he's not going to get second surely. No, not quite. It's Lewis Kent into second. There's contact. Jack Constable is sideways in the gravel, and he's going to collect Will Butler as they go up the hill. Butler backwards. Let's hope no one collects him again as he spins and spins up the hill. Thankfully they've Druids. Oh, they've started how they left off yesterday, haven't they, with 2 cars, 3 cars already off the road. Bruce Winfield leads the way. Lewis Kent is second, as sideways Dan Kirby is 3rd, with Jack Constable and Will Butler are recovering, and coming through it all are Brad Kent and Max Hart in their 2 Hyundais from the back of the grid. Well, Paul, that was dramatic.
Wow, it wasn't. It ain't finished yet, is it? That was all to do with rear tyre temp. As you can see, a great move that was, wasn't it? The rear tyre temp here is critical, and it's quite a low. Still a few damp patches here and there. So that rear-wheel drive BMW 1 Series is having a real struggle to get the temperature in its front tyres. Yellow flags, maybe a safety car as well. So yellow flags. Was that move done? Winfield's still out in front, isn't he? So yeah, these guys in this Lewis Kent actually needs to back off now, because I'm not sure if there is a safety car. It doesn't look like it, but they've gone past the situation at Druids, which Darren Lewis found himself in. That looked like locked rear axle, didn't it?
Yeah, that was odd. He was already out of control when he came into our camera shot, but certainly not the way he wanted his race to end. He was in the gravel yesterday as well after a punt, and the red flags are out. Red flags are out then with 2 cars off in the first sector. Jack Constable's car on the inside at Paddock. Darren Lewis is in the gravel at Druids. The red flags have been thrown, so the race even is being paused for now. We will get a restart though in a few minutes' time. Bruce Winfield's probably quite happy about that, because he was already feeling the heat there from Lewis Kent. Lewis almost made that move actually into Paddock and then had to bail out of it because of the yellow flags. So heads up driving there from the youngster. Winfield the leader, then Kent second and Kirby 3rd. But because, Paul, we only completed 1 lap, the restart I would imagine will be from the original grid positions.
Yeah, of course. It's weird to see a red flag and cars coming straight into the pit lane
unless they have been told to go into the pit lane, because usually you will re-grid. As you can see, our hard-working marshals in orange there, just making sure that they're in the right positions for the grid. So maybe they'll get stopped at the end of the pit lane. We've seen this yesterday, actually, didn't we? There was a bit of confusion down there, but hopefully they'll get it all sorted. That's not a good sight. Is that Chris Wallace's car stopped?
Yeah, Chris, just to complete that story, which I touched upon yesterday, had an accident at Castle Combe in his VW Cup car, which means he couldn't race it this weekend. So what does he do? Chucks himself into a Hyundai TCR car that he'd never driven before this weekend, and it's been a bit of a steep learning curve. These TCR cars are not easy to wrap your head around. If you don't have much experience of racing slick-shod front-wheel drive touring cars, these cars can take quite a bit of driving just to work out the nuances of.
Yeah, and you know, I speak to quite a few people. I drive quite a few of these TCR cars with just private coaching stuff I do. And what I do say to people who are coming from, you know, Volkswagen Racing Cup up into a TCR car is, they're amazing cars to drive, the Volkswagen Racing Cup, and quite affordable and great for budget. But once you get into a TCR car, it then becomes a massive event. When you're sat in the car, you feel like you've come out of the front room of your terraced house into a spaceship, and you're getting flown off into a different planet. So you sit in a weird place, and you know, as soon as you sit down, Andy, you feel like you're not really connected to the car, and it takes a while. So Chris Wallace will get there, but we just want to see him out on track and not having any dramas like he looks like he's having at the minute.
Yeah, the car up on the jacks in the pit lane, so some sort of an issue for the Hyundai, I think. On our screens, we're seeing the recovery efforts begin, with Jack Constable's car being collected by the flatbed truck just in the dip, going up Halewood Hill. I'd imagine that car's going to have some right front corner damage. It was quite a hefty whack that he gave to Will Butler, and we see that time and again here at Brands Hatch, don't we? A car gets sideways at turn one, especially a front-wheel drive car. They try and correct it, it snaps back the other way, and poor Will Butler, wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, he did. Do you know, I was looking at the start as well. It's always difficult at Brands Hatch. A lot of the racers out there will know when you're, you know, on the pole on the inside. As we look at our screen, that first white line you can see, but on the left, it's actually massively banked. So you kind of have to be a bit cheeky and aim a bit left to try and get your front wheels to have as least wheel spin as they can and not head towards the pit wall on grass, because as soon as that happens, you're out the throttle, you've lost momentum. And I noticed he had two flashes of the brake lights, and that to me was saying that he had a lot of wheel spin and he was trying to get rid of it without coming out the throttle and losing turbo boost. He was just trying to cover the brakes, and like you do on a motorbike, you have a thumb brake just to stop the things wheeling. Obviously a front wheel drive touring car's not going to do a big wheelie, but you see where I'm coming from. They were just trying to get the traction down. So not a great start, a lot of nerves running through Will Butler's hands and feet as he took off, but Bruce Winfield again having the easier job of a brake and a throttle, full brake pressure, full throttle, release the brake, and away you go. But you still have to master that easily. But he was under pressure, wasn't he, that first lap then?
Yeah, well, Lewis Kent started third, got into second early doors ahead of Will Butler, and really needs the points here, doesn't he? Because Lewis was a bit disappointed yesterday. Yesterday was actually the first time Lewis has been off the podium so far this season. It was not a disaster, he was fourth place, but he still would be disappointed not to have been in the top three. And knowing that Max Hart and Bradley Kent were deep in the field after their issues, their non-finishes yesterday, Lewis really wanted to capitalise. Will Butler's car, you can see on the screen, is also stranded halfway at Halewood Hill, so there are 3 cars actually to be removed from the scene up there. Wasn't a great start for Will Butler. It was a demon start from Dan Kirby. I don't know what Dan Kirby has done in preparation for this weekend, but he is a different driver. He's always been quick, but he seems to now be placing the car in much better positions. He went 4 wide.
Yeah, he was a brave man, wasn't he? I think it's because I was winding him up in the pit lane before, saying he needed to sort his tan out. But I must admit, he's shown flashes of brilliance in the previous 2 rounds we've had at Silverstone and Combe, but he just had that to the
he had a bit of a whack as he went through. The car spinning off left, right, centre after all. So we will try and have a look at it. We rated
Cars being released back out onto the circuit now behind the safety car, so this is going to be the regridding process. They're still recovering these cars from the run-up to and through Druids. You can see on our screen there where the 3 cars are that need to be moved. Darren Lewis's car, probably the one that's going to take the longest to move because it's well and truly buried in that gravel. But whilst that's being done, the field are going to be re-gridded. As I said, this should go back to original grid positions now, minus the 3 that we've lost. So Will Butler will get another stab at this from pole position, and poor Dan Kirby's got to do it all again from the outside of row 3 after that really good start that he had first time around. Let's talk about Bradley Kent and Max Hart then, the 2 really quick guys coming from the back of the grid. They made some good progress. First and foremost, they avoided the carnage at Paddock, because that's always the danger of starting at the back of the grid, isn't it? And for Max in particular, this has to be a good race, doesn't it? He is so frustrated with the way this season has gone. A win and a 2nd place at Silverstone. Great start. Tied for the championship lead after the first meeting. Then disqualified at Castle Combe in race 1. A non-finish yesterday. But Paul, we speak to him in the paddock and he's still got that smile on his face, he's got that placid character about him. This is a really talented driver that just needs a little bit of luck to go his way.
Yeah, and do you know what? The next 2 races coming up, now and later on, you know, we don't know. We might be seeing him win this race and win the next race. So, and when you get momentum like that and you start to be on the bounce, that's when your championship situation just becomes a doddle. But at the minute, it's how you know, keep hold of that frustration and go forward. He's got the right team underneath him. He's got the right car underneath him in the 101. You know, the i30N is a fantastic car. You've got one as a road car. And I was looking, do you know, I was really interested. I was looking at the rear of that car before, and it has the same kind of suspension on the rear as an R5 WRC car, the guys were telling me. So yeah, you have to take a massive spanner to the rear of it to change anything, which I'm not a mechanic, but I've seen underneath other TCR cars and they're just a bit different. But that's the rally background from the Hyundai guys.
Yeah, they certainly are very potent Hyundais. They dominated the first event at Silverstone, but of course in TCR we have balance of performance. There is also championship success ballast that goes out to the drivers that do best in the championship from the previous round. So that has done its job, hasn't it? Because if you cast your mind back to Silverstone, there wasn't a hope of a Cupra winning a race at Silverstone, and yet last time out at Castle Combe, well, we had a Vauxhall Astra won the first race in the hands of Darrell Wilson. We had Jack Constable in the mix, Alex Kite was running well. This weekend we're talking about Bruce Winfield and Jack Constable fighting for podium. So as much as drivers love to whinge about BOP and success ballast, it does its job.
Yeah, of course. You know, we do. Listen, if you want to go and watch tin top racing at this level, you cannot have a BOP that doesn't work, and this to me seems to work. We see it done differently in other championships, but at the same time, this, you know, look, you've got a DSG car on the pole. Bruce Winfield, great driver, great car, but it is perceived to be the slower of the sequential or the DSG boxes. So, and then you can see Lewis Kent in a Hyundai sequential car, which, you know, they're seen to be the quicker car because they have proper race gearboxes compared to a DSG, which you would find in the road with you know, with better internals, let's say. You've got the A-Class there. I think it's Toby Byrne, isn't it, that car? You know, that's an ex BTCC car, so an NGTC touring car. So it's great that these cars can come in and be competitive. And there's the man of the moment, Dan Kirby. He's done a great job, like we were saying, this weekend. And the other of the Kent brothers, Bradley, he really must be thinking, why is my brother so much faster at the minute? I mean, that qualifying lap that Lewis did was pretty exceptional, I thought.
Well, yeah, but Brad has actually been quicker than Lewis this weekend, and that's been a turn up for the books because obviously it's their local track for both of them. They are siblings after all. The team are based just down the road. But Lewis, when we spoke to him at Castle Combe, was so confident about this weekend. He says, I've done thousands of laps around Brands Hatch. I know the place backwards. That's my weekend to shine. I don't think he counted on his younger brother coming in his first season of touring car racing. Bang, straight on the pace. Silverstone, he was matching, if not slightly quicker than Lewis. Castle Combe got his first victory. Brad stuck it on pole then for the race yesterday. Bradley Kent, had it not been for the off, I think, at Paddock, would probably have won yesterday's race. And if he'd have done that, we'd be talking about Bradley Kent being perhaps right on the heels of Lewis in the championship. Yeah,
I mean, it's not that he wasn't on my radar. I just know how good Lewis is. And I just think it's great that, you know, we're even talking about Bruce Winfield here, he could lead the championship. You know,
Yes.
there's no doubt that he couldn't do that. You know, we did have it down as a bit of a two-horse race between Max and Bradley, didn't we? So, or Lewis. So, yeah, it's great to be speaking about other people, and Dan Kirby winning that race. I mean, to be fair, I don't think you can discount anyone, really.
No.
Only if I was in it, you could discount me.
Not at all, Paul. We've had 5 different winners from the first 5 races. I mean, there are other championships that would kill for a stat like that, and they are 5 genuine winners as well. Only one of them, Daryl Wilson, is doing a sort of part-time campaign, but the other 4 are all full-season entrants, and we still have other people like Bruce Winfield, for example, that could win. Jack Constable hasn't won yet. The A-Class Mercedes haven't won, and yet they've been on the pace all the time. So we could hit 7 or 8 winners over the course of the season, and that, for me, is a sign of a strong championship. It's all well and good to have 1 or 2 drivers that do all the winning, even if they're evenly matched and can give us a good championship fight. The more drivers we have that have podium and race win potential, the better, and that is definitely something that we have in the championship this year. We haven't yet spoken about the VWs either, and we ought to. Nothing actually happened in the VW Cup elements of the race on that first lap. They were still in grid order, so Ollie Turner ahead. Turner, I spoke to him after his race yesterday, Paul, and he had an issue with the car that was allowing fumes to come into the car. He was getting very lightheaded, his eyes were streaming, he nearly threw up when he got out of the car. Is that something you've ever experienced yourself? It doesn't sound fun.
Do you know, the only thing I've ever experienced that's like that, and I had to come into the pits, was we in another championship, another Tin Top championship, we had these weird brake pads called Project Mu, which are Australian, and we'd never used them before. And the material of them stung my eyes so much, and I couldn't breathe in the car. And luckily, it was in a free practice session, but it properly scuppered everything because we had to put the old pads back in, and the fumes in the car, you just cannot operate. It's like just trying to go through it's just a smoke inhalation. It just really takes your concentration away. So it's a bit of an eye. Darren Lewis at the bottom of the pit lane. I mean, that car, I'm surprised that car's allowed to be let out.
Well, yes, I'm trying to cast my mind back now to similar situations. If it's deemed that he did not bring out the red flag, I mean, I failed to see how he didn't because he was one of the cars that needed moving. But if that is deemed to be the case, he might be allowed to restart. But let's hope he is, because Darren has actually had some decent pace this weekend. He went off yesterday after some contact up at Clearways. That tells me, though, the fact that they're ready to send the car back out tells me that the car didn't break. It was clearly helped into the gravel. So as long as there's no damage from the contact, and as long as the car is allowed to restart, which evidently is the case, then he is going to be able to take this restart, which will be over 15 minutes, by the way. The timing screen's been updated now, a 15-minute restart. Let's hope we get to the end this time. We haven't actually seen a checkered flag yet this weekend in the Touring Car Trophy. We had 2 red flags in yesterday's race. Didn't quite get to the end of the 8-minute restart, so fingers crossed for some cleaner racing now. Let's hope we get to the very finish. The grid, then, is based upon the original grid, but of course we're missing 2 or 3 drivers now. So at the front it's still Will Butler and Bruce Winfield, Lewis Kent 3rd. There is no Jack Constable 4th, though, so Toby Byrne is next ahead of Dan Kirby. They're the 2 cars on your screen now. Then it's actually Dan Wiley, because Will Powell was a non-starter anyway, and I'm not sure what's happened to Alex Kite, but Alex Kite is not there, is he? Certainly not in his... Oh, he's behind Dan Wiley for reasons I don't quite understand. So the BMW ahead of the Astra. Then you've got those 2 quick truck guys coming from the back. Bradley Kent ahead of Max Hart with Chris Wallace for some reason in between them. So the grid has been formed using some sort of a formula I don't quite understand, because it's kind of a mix of original grid order and the order they were in at the red flag, minus the cars that weren't running at the time in the red flag. But either way, they're going to line up in the grid in some sort of order, and hopefully, Paul, give us a good race.
Commentator's nightmare, that, isn't it?
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, Bradley Kent, lot to think about in this one. He's got to get past quite a few cars, and Brands is the place where it's difficult. If anybody can, though, he can do it. You know, these guys are pretty local. They know the score. The home heroes. They'll know that they'll be able to get underneath people with a good front end on that Hyundai, especially into paddock and especially into the last corner clearway. So let's hope we can see some action. I did notice on the warm-up lap, actually, Dan Kirby was warming his tyres up and then he took himself out. I think it was over the front of that BMW. So yeah, so a very, very interesting race ahead of us, and hopefully they all get in place. And you can see there one of the I think it's actually Brad, isn't it? Is it the Bradley Kent in the back there? He's well, the two Hyundais, they're both Kent brothers. One's out of position. Well, he's not out of position. He's just so far back, and the other one looks like he's trying to do a launch start into the grandstands on the left.
Just to correct something I said before, of course Will Butler is not on pole position, he is a non-starter, so it's Bruce Winfield essentially who has the pole position here. As the red lights go out, we're away once again. Another good start by Winfield and Kirby. That's been the story of the weekend. Winfield holds the lead, Kirby up to third, and here comes Alex Kite in the Astra that won in the hands of Darrell Wilson last time at Castle Combe. Round the outside of Toby Byrne, he will sweep past the Mercedes through turn one. So cleanly through paddock this time, thank goodness. Up the hill they go towards Druids. It's Winfield from Lewis Kent from Kirby, the top three. Kite is fourth, Byrne fifth, Dan Wiley running well in sixth with Max Hart right behind him. So crucially, Max Hart then is still ahead of Bradley Kent. Those two Hyundais coming from the back. In fact, where is Bradley Kent? Couldn't even see him there in that train as they worked their way through. Yeah, he's in amongst the VWs, so Brad has had a terrible start.
Yeah, what's gone on there? That's a strange one. Max Hart getting on with things in the 101. He'll struggle to get past that BMW. Obviously, rear-wheel drive coming out of clearways. As good as your front end is in your Hyundai, if you're not down the inside, you're going to have a struggle with the traction of that 1 Series. But look at this battle on, innit? Look at it. He's going to have a go around the outside. That's going to be hard work. Trying to get in. Oh, he tried to get the switch back on him. Winfield was having none of it. He's got his work cut out as Brucey.
Yeah, and Lewis has to get a move on here because Dan Kirby, yesterday's winner, is right with them now. So 3 for the lead as they go through Druids. It is still Winfield just about that leads the way. Martin Depper, by the way, has the lead in the VW Racing Cup, so he's had a really good start. He leads the way from Jeff Alden second and his son Jack Depper in third. Down the hill they come. Max Hart ahead of Dan Wiley. What have you seen, Paul?
Oh, that Vauxhall Astra of Alex Kite was proper sideways. That right rear doesn't get used so much around here except for Graham Hill Bend really and the entry into Surtees. So yeah, he was struggling a bit there. Dan Kirby's car is hooked right up. He's going to put big pressure on that Hyundai in front of him, and I tell you what, Lewis is going to have his work cut out, but he's got his flashes on because he knows that Bruce Winfield is going to be really easy to catch but hard to pass. Look at the brakes on that Hyundai as they go into Paddock Hill Bend, but as long as Bruce can back him into Dan Kirby is looking exceptional this weekend. Very good front end on that Cupra and also great on the brakes as well.
Yeah, he looked good on the brakes yesterday, did Dan Kirby. Made some nice moves up through clearways. Lewis Kent actually was slower than the race leader on the previous lap. Kirby setting the fastest lap of the race. There go Kite and Byrne, 4th and 5th with Max Hart 6th, Dan Wiley 7th and Brad Kent back up to 8th. But what was it the team told us earlier on? If Brad hadn't passed 6 cars in the first lap, they were going to have words with him. Well, yeah, there's definitely going to be a conversation about that start. He went backwards instead of forwards. Speaking of going backwards, how about some sideways action from Alex Kite? Good save that. He loses a place to Toby Byrne, but he was very nearly in the gravel.
Yeah, he's got a really strange delta going on with the rear tyre temps compared to the fronts. The rear's just not up to temperature at all. I was saying that it was difficult to get into Graham Hill Bend with a cold right rear. He's got a cold left rear as well. I'm mystified how he gets through paddock and not having over rotation with the rear axle giving up, but it was definitely giving up, wasn't it, back then? This is going to be a really late lunge because Bruce is under massive pressure. This is where it's going to be now, isn't it? They're going to go. Dan Kirby could actually get something out of this in 3rd place.
Lewis is being a lot more patient now, though, than we've seen from some other drivers this weekend, which is good to see. He's not just gone for the first dive bomb move that he had the chance to do, although he does, as I say that, tag the back of Bruce Winfield going through clearways. Now that's going to delay them both. Keep an eye on Kirby in 3rd.
I'm not sure whether he did tag him. He might have done, but it looked like Bruce actually bounced off the curves on the entry to clearways. Without seeing it again, I wouldn't know, but I tell you what, this is a masterclass by Winfield in a DSG Cupra. Absolutely brilliant. That Hyundai is definitely at least 3/10 quicker. But Kirby around the outside, can he get it done? No. Tucks back in. I tell you what, if Dan Kirby wasn't there, you would be definitely seeing a change of leader. And I think Dan Kirby is the man to watch. This is proper tin top racing, this is.
Oh, Alex Kite sideways again. When isn't he sideways? He was telling me yesterday, actually, Alex, that car is a lot looser at the rear, a lot snappier than the Cupra was that he drove at Castle Combe. So that, I think, is what we're seeing a little bit of there. Again, very close between the top two. Now, Lewis Kent is a bit closer this time, actually, to Winfield as they come through Clark Curve. Across the start-finish line they go. Still not even 5 minutes into this restarted race, and Lewis Kent is within striking distance now. Goes for the inside of Paddock Hill Bend. This could be the lead change. Lewis Kent goes through. Winfield saw him coming and now tries to get the switchback back up the hill, and he's there. He's on the inside into Druids corner. He's late on the brakes, and Bruce Winfield goes back into the lead. They are door to door out of Druids corner. Down the hill they come. inside, Winfield on the outside, and Dan Kirby rubbing his hands with glee because he sees a chance to challenge the pair of them here. Kent gets back through, Winfield second, but he's back on him again down the Cooper Straight.
Oh, that was proper stuff. I'm sorry if you heard me clapping in the comms box, because I know as a driver how difficult it is to judge that move and get back underneath the person who's took that place from you. But I would expect to see now Kent to drive away from these two and leave him to deal with Dan Kirby in third place. Absolutely brilliant driving. That could have ended up with cars in the barrier, but no. Winfield was brilliant and made sure he had another go at him, and very unfortunate not to get him back down at Graham Hill Bend.
And now Dan Kirby is on his toes to get past Winfield because he can see Lewis Kent starting to go away. It's already half a second between the top two. Dan Kirby in third wants to try and go after the race leader before the Hyundai gets too far up the road. So new order then, Lewis Kent leads the way, Winfield second, Dan Kirby third, Toby Byrne is still fourth ahead of Alex Kite, with Max Hart yet to get past the Astra. There they go actually, and look who is catching them, Bradley Kent. So Max Hart, I'm surprised he's not cleared Alex Kite a bit quicker. No disservice there to Alex, but Max, you would think, would be able to make this move pretty easily.
Very interesting, isn't it? We've seen how, you know, amazing these I-30Ns are around the track in the hands of Lewis Kent up front, but just can't seem to make any progress. You know, as you say, no disrespect to Alex, and Alex's rear of the Astra just looks proper leery, and I think that it's going to be done at paddock, it's going to be on the brakes. It does close up, but it just looks like that Astra's got some good traction off the medium to low speed corners.
Yeah, you can see Max Hart close it in under braking, but he's too far back when they get to the braking zone to convert that into an overtake. And now, of course, he's having to watch his mirrors because Bradley Kent is right there behind him again, and Bradley carries a lot more speed there into Graham Hill Bend. These two cars, even I can tell, are set up very differently. The corner speed that Brad could take there, it made Max look like he was standing still.
Very interesting. I'm just trying to look at the rear of the cars. It does actually look like Bradley's car is just carrying a bit more rear camber, where the tyres are not as stood up as straight as the car in front. And if you have more rear camber sometimes on your car, it means that you can actually turn in better and have a bit more rotation, and then you'll pick up a bit more rear grip as the corner goes on. Look at that, he's having to defend hard. This is going to be a difficult couple of laps here for Max. Round the outside, is that going to move? Wow, what is that all about? I mean, that was a proper late bit of braking there, but look at that, Kite's gone.
Well, I mean, Max was so much earlier on the brakes there that I actually thought he was letting Bradley through, but then he fought back at the apex and holds on. But you're right, this is allowing Max Kite to get away. Bradley is up the inside now into Surtees, and this time he will go through. Brad's car looks a bit softer as well to me, a bit more compliant over the bumps maybe, and that will be helping him, especially if it's a little damp and greasy out there.
Yeah, he's got massive understeer, Max Hart, in the 101. Can't get to the apex, struggling with traction, and like you say, he's not confident on the brakes, is he? But you can see Kent's just drove away now, and I'd be very interested to see Max Hart's take on this, because it just looks like everything you need from a car he hasn't got, and he can't take the curbs like Kent in front of him. And like you rightly said, the car does look a bit softer as we go back to the P2 battle, and Winfield is I bet he's sick of the sight of Leon, isn't he?
Yes, he's quite keen on his one, but he'd like the others to leave him alone, thank you very much. The leader is getting away now, and the fight for second is what's starting to brew now, with Winfield just about keeping Kirby at bay. In the VW Cup, by the way, there's a nice battle, I think, about to develop for the lead. It's still Martin Depper that leads, but pole sitter Ollie Turner is back into second now, ahead of Jeff Alden, and less than a second behind the leader. Something has happened to Jack Depper, though, because Jack Depper is 13 seconds behind. He's 9 seconds behind Jeff Alden in third place. So Jack Depper either has a problem or has been off. His previous lap was 2 seconds slower than the cars ahead of him. So we'll try and check in with them in a moment, see if there's anything. In fact, there is Jack Depper right on cue, about to be lapped by the race leader Lewis Kent. So let's see if we can see an issue with this green Scirocco. Turns its way through Graham Hill Bend. The leader about to try and lap it down the back straight. And yeah, not going right here for Jack Depper. I can't see any obvious damage on the car.
That's very interesting one, but that's the thing, you only need a little bit of contact early doors, and if your toe's been knocked out, I'm not on about the 5 that you've got on your feet, well, maybe, I don't know how many toes people have these days, but yeah, it is an interesting one. If you've got a little knock on one of your corners, that can, especially around Brands Hatch with the undulation and the cambers of this track, it really can overheat your front tyres or not work the rears too much. So yeah, difficult one for Depper, but his dad, like you rightly said, out in front, looking like he's never been away. I mean, I know how bad Martin Depper is as a driver, so for him to be leading this race, I'm pretty impressed.
Oh, he's going to thank you for saying that later, Paul. Martin Depper is the definition of a character. We hear racing drivers described as characters quite a lot, but Martin really, really is. Right, changes here for fourth. That's Bradley Kent ahead of the, guess what, sideways Alex Kite, and that latest moment's going to cost him another place because Max Hart is up the inside at Surtees. No, Kite doesn't roll over and let him go, and why should he? Alex is here on a one-off outing at the moment. He's trying to prove to everyone that he can drive these cars well, but that Astra does not look happy.
What is going on with that Astra? That is like, I mean, Darrell must be watching this, who's usually driving the car, thinking, who's this lad turned up with trying to give it the big sideways challenge? I tell you what, that thing's got some grunt, hasn't it? That Astra, but it's easy pickings for the Hyundai, and it's down the inside on the brakes. But yeah, very interesting stuff. Look, it's got some good traction out of paddock as well. But these guys really getting on with it now, and Kite ain't rolling over, is he? He's gonna get right in the back of that car and hopefully push him all away.
Yeah, Alex Kite, Castle Combe local, who's won championships at Castle Combe, really impressed in a drive in a Cupra DSG last time out in TCR at Combe, but making his Brands Hatch TCR debut here this weekend. Right, out of the final corner comes Lewis Kent. He's got 4 minutes to go in the race. He's got a 3-second cushion now over Bruce Winfield. So second place Winfield still keeping Kirby at bay for the time being. The VW Cup is possibly worth trying to check in with because Lewis Kent and because Martin Depper and Ollie Turner, first and second, who are going into Surtees now, I can see out of the window, are absolutely nose to tail. Ollie Turner in the yellow and blue VW Golf has converted a 1.5 second deficit into just a 2/10 deficit now. Martin Depper, he may be quick, but he's got some racecraft to relearn now, hasn't he?
Well, there we go then. So Martin Depper, I was saying how old and how bad he was, but I've got to give him his due. He's leading this race, but we know how good Ollie Turner is, and I was talking to Ollie before. Bit of oversteer in that 22 there as he tries to catch Depper. Depper's got to defend here because Ollie will be just streaking past him at any opportunity that he has. So yeah, headlights are on, aren't they, in that Golf behind him, and he's just trying everything he can. He's got 2 minutes and 58 seconds to do it. Can he do it? Do I think he can do it? I actually think if there was anyone out there to get past Martin Depper, it's definitely Ollie Turner, but this is a difficult place to do it.
Oh, Martin's going to be loving this, though. This is exactly why he came back to racing this weekend. He hasn't raced anything for a little while now, Martin, and he's missed it, I think, and this is the kind of racing he wants to get involved in. Out of Clark Curve, they come across the start-finish line then, so we're looking at the battle for the VW Racing Cup lead here. The grey Scirocco, the yellow and blue Golf. Martin Depper, ex-British touring car racer, and Ollie Turner, up-and-coming tin-top racing star, raced successfully in the Fiesta Junior Championship in recent years. Does a bit of coaching still for some of the Fiesta Junior drivers, which terrifies me because Ollie looks like he's about half my age and he's tutoring drivers who are even younger than him on how to be better racing drivers. Racing drivers really do seem to get younger the longer I work in motorsport, but Ollie, having caught Martin Depper, hasn't yet been able to find a way through. The positions stay as they are, and just as we've cut to this battle, actually, the second place scrap overall is starting to look interesting as well, because Bruce Winfield and Dan Kirby, who still haven't traded places, have been reeled in by the Mercedes of Toby Byrne, and Toby was really strong in the latter stages of yesterday's race too.
Yeah, he really was, wasn't he, in the A-Class Mercedes, and, you know, with the different regulations in that he really has caught him, hasn't he, with the headlights on. With the different regulations that are running this championship, that Mercedes, I tell you what, that Mercedes nearly turned itself into a Cupra hybrid. He's right on the edge of the grass and the gravel there. Oh, this is going to be difficult because what I am led to believe is that the NGTC cars are a bit better. Oh, what a move! Absolutely slings her down the inside, and Toby is 1, and it's Winfield 0.
Blimey, I mean, wow, that was a move. That was a move and a half, and credit there to Bruce Winfield because he saw that coming at the last second and just opened up the steering to avoid contact, but that was committed. Toby Byrne didn't make many friends yesterday, it's fair to say. He was getting well and truly stuck in, but this is why. He knows that car is working well around this track. He's got a chance now to go for second place and repeat that podium finish from yesterday. He's got to try and catch Dan Kirby first, though. Kirby's taken advantage of that little exchange to pull away, and we are now, Paul, starting the final lap.
So we are, and it's been a great race, isn't it, to be fair, from Lewis. He's done a fantastic job, but just going back to Toby Byrne, he better shake Bruce Winfield's hand after this, because if it wasn't for Bruce, it was a great move, but if it wasn't for Bruce, some other people would have turned in, but Bruce knows the score, and he knows it's all about getting across the line, isn't it, and just getting the points in. So everybody's starting to really get involved now as we go for it.
Yeah, so down into Graham Hill Bend they go then for the final time. Dan Kirby looks as though his second place will be safe, but if the race was another 2 or 3 minutes longer, I'm not convinced that he'd have been able to keep the rapid Toby Byrne at bay. Race leader Lewis Kent, though, is coming out of the final corner right now and is about to take the checkered flag to win the second race of the weekend. Here he comes then out of Clark Curve. Round number 6 of the championship is won by Lewis Kent, and he becomes the first double winner of 2021. Dan Kirby, though, backs up his win from yesterday with a second place in this one. Third position will go the way of Toby Byrne, with Bruce Winfield in 4th. Then Bradley Kent, excuse me, 5th, with Max Hart in 6th. In the VW Racing Cup, incidentally, it is still Martin Depper ahead of Ollie Turner. Where are they? Oh, they're going into the left-hander at Surtees now, the VW leaders. I don't think that Turner is going to get close enough here to have a go. You can just see them at the top of the screen there, turning through the last corner. Turner's going to give it one more go out of the final corner, but he's not going to have the momentum to clear Martin Depper. So Martin, on his return to the championship, his return to racing, is a winner in the VW Racing Cup by a car length or so over Ollie Turner in second place, Jeff Alden and Jack Depper third and fourth. Definitely a story to tell with Jack there. His car was never on the pace all race long. And that was round number 6 of the championship. What a race it was. We got to the end of that one, though, thankfully, without another red flag. And Lewis Kent comes home victorious, and that will really help his championship challenge, because he was already more than 25 points, which is what you get for a race victory, ahead of anyone else in the championship. And, of course, he's got another win now, and that will only serve to help his championship hopes even more. So Martin Depper and Ollie Turner win in, or first and second, in the VW Racing Cup. Jeff Alden third, Jack Depper fourth, and Russell Joyce, unfortunately, still some turbo issues, you'd imagine, with that Golf. That was what kept him out of the race yesterday, and he again didn't turn a lap that time. In the overall result, though, it was Lewis Kent with the victory by just under 4.5 seconds over Dan Kirby second. Bruce Winfield was not third. Toby Byrne was third, according to our timing screens, with Bruce Winfield fourth, then Bradley Kent and Max Hart, with Dan Wiley 8th, excuse me. Martin Depper then was the next of the VWs, the first of the VWs, in 9th place. Toby Byrne wins the TCT class, although the TCT, the NGTC cars, race in the same class technically as the TCR machinery. So that is an outright podium for Toby Byrne in the NGTC Mercedes. So that was a dramatic 6th round of the championship. Round number 7 will be a little bit later on today. The race, the third and final race of the weekend, due to kick off at around about 2:20 this afternoon here at Brands Hatch. So plenty more racing still to come. And for those of you trackside, we've got a pair of Civic Cup races as well. The first of those coming up within the next half an hour or so. So a real mix of the time attack, the sort of time trial format of the time attack machines here this weekend. We've got the drifting cars out there as well, putting on a great show as they did yesterday, and then bringing actual racing to these time attack meetings with our TCT and Civic Cup races, and I think it's been a real hit so far. So Paul O'Neill is heading downstairs then to have a word with the race winners, hopefully, and we'll be able to talk through with Lewis Kent exactly how he got that much needed second victory of the year. His 25 points, by the way, will put him now on to 136 points in total. Bruce Winfield, who was second in the championship, finished 4th, so gets 18 points. So the gap between those two now is even bigger than it was before. It's going to be officially 45 points now between Kent and Winfield. Max Hart, of course, who was third in the championship, only managed 6, so 14 points for him. Bradley Kent was 5th, so gets 16 points. And Dan Kirby, the one that's really creeping into championship contention a bit more here, was 2nd. And so he gets the 22 points for 2nd place. So Dan Kirby, the big winner out of all of that then, is going to move up into potentially 3rd place in the championship, I reckon. Yeah, Dan Kirby with those 22 points moves on to 87, so third in the championship then for Kirby, but only 4 points behind Bruce Winfield now. So that is, I think, going to be the next of our championship battles to think about here. And if Lewis Kent keeps on finishing as consistently as he has been, then he is going to be extremely tough to beat in the championship title. So we believe the drivers are on their way to have a word with Paul O'Neill. We've got the cars heading out for our next on-track session, which is the Drift Pro Championship qualifying session before their semi-final and finals a bit later on today. And those cars really put on a great show yesterday afternoon. I caught a bit of the drifting action. So looking forward to their spectacle that's on its way. I can see, I think, Lewis Kent jogging his way up though, so he is almost ready to have a chat with Paul O'Neill down in the pit lane. And we should hopefully also have a chance to speak to Martin Depper, our VW Cup winner, if we have time. So Lewis Kent then will of course be looking forward to the third race as well later on, because we've already, I believe, had a grid set for that one. Yeah, the grid for race 3 is based on the second fastest time from qualifying, which interestingly puts Bradley and Lewis Kent together on that front row. Bradley has the pole, Lewis will be second on the grid with Max Hart third. Now that is shaping up to be a pretty tasty battle in that third race. There is no love lost between the Kent team and Max Hart as their drivers go head to head for the championship. And having all three of them at the front of the grid for that race a bit later on is going to be pretty spicy. That race, as I said, at 2:20 due to get underway. So almost ready then, I believe, to have a chat with our race winner then, Lewis Kent, who has, I think, made the jog up the pit lane, and Paul O'Neill is ready and raring to go then to have a word with our race winner.
Wowzers. Happy Father's Day, Martin Depper. Martin, you don't actually look like you've been in the car.
Now, while sticking to his lines, obviously youth doesn't have the experience of when the tyres go off, as you your style a little bit, doesn't it? So yeah, we held on to that. Disappointed, sorry to my father, because you should have had a Father's Day with son and grandson, but he span again. Come on, Jack, sort it out. Yeah, great day, good win.
Absolutely amazing, mate. And listen, everyone's made up for you. Jack, do you know what happened?
Yeah, I think he was just trying to get past Jeff, and yeah, it was early. I don't quite know what happened, but yeah, he obviously didn't get it right.
Top man. Well, listen, good luck for the next one. Lewis Kent, you absolute lad, mate. What a race. You've done the business. You've come back stronger.
Yeah, you know, home track favourite. I think that's what it is. But no, Bruce put up a hard fight. I had a couple of hard laps behind me. I had Dan on the arse the whole time. Got a bit worried, but no, saw a gap, went for it. Got late on the brakes and held it sideways all the way down paddock until I got straight again. But yeah, it was brilliant racing. You know, I can't thank all the boys enough. It was really good, and yeah, hopefully off the 1-2 start the next one we can do the same.
Top man. Well, listen, sorry to cut you short. We're going to go back to Andy, but fantastic result, mate. Well happy for you. Spot on. Back to you, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Great race that was then for the Maximum Networks VW Racing Cup, incorporating the Goodyear Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK. Their third and final race of the weekend is up a little bit later on at 2:20.
And for now, those of you following along